The video card looks like it's physically not even installed properly.
I just took off the bolts. I have them
Okay.
here.
Well, my first notice here is that should be 90 degrees.
Yeah.
You see how it's cockeyed?
Yeah, I was just messing around with it.
Okay. Well,
I have the bolts here that hold it in place here.
Okay. Yeah. So
There you go.
so your Wi-Fi card here is loose. I gotta open it up and make sure things are not going to short out.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because of that.
Absolutely.
So.
Completely my fault.
Well, I mean, so one of the biggest issues in transporting a large computer is if you have large parts like a video card, they can dislodge and become loose. This, I kind of want to open up just to see what's going on.
Okay.
And this is an older machine I see. Let's see here. So this here. Oh wait, is that my screw?
Those are mine.
You just, okay, cool, that's why.
Yeah.
Alright, so, let's see what's up here. Before I plug it in and try to turn it on, I need to see what's going on. There we go. Alright. Okay, so physically, yeah, you got a lot of, so the screw is basically missing here. Got it.
That's these three.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to, actually what I usually like to do is just use a thumb screw
Okay.
for that particular, okay, interesting. Let's do this. Okay, video card's plugged in. Let's see. Actually, that doesn't work because there's not enough room.
One of the thumb screws there is smaller than the others.
Got it.
If you want to try that one.
I see that. I just prefer thumb screws just because for maintenance or if you revisit the same issue, it's easier to deal with. Okay, so now let's just do this. I'm going to go ahead and use your original screw because your thumb screws seem a little bit big. Alright, so let's see how this works. Hopefully the motherboard wasn't fatigued with such a heavy card.
Would not being supported.
Right.
While I moved it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you've got the budget or are willing to spend money on a new machine. I could just tell right off the bat that this is a dated machine. Do you know how old it is?
Well, no.
Okay.
I replaced the motherboard.
How long have you had it?
I've had it for 3 years.
Okay.
And I replaced the motherboard last year, and I got the graphics card last year as well, and the Wi-Fi card.
Were they all new parts?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Usually when I see a VGA port on a motherboard, that tells me it's probably at least a few years old.
Yes, it was definitely an older design.
Got it. Okay, so now that I've at least figured that much out, I'm going to plug into this TV, and I'm going to turn it on, and we're going to see. The other thing I noticed is with this case, I can't plug this HDMI cable firmly into the video.
Yeah, I've always thought that was really annoying.
Yeah, so we'll mess around. Let's see what's going on. Now I'm going to plug in the USB keyboard. Alrighty. Alright. Turn the power on. Plug the power in. And now let's fire it up and see what it does. Alrighty. Input is wrong. You said basically it'll turn on, but without a display.
Yeah, that was the problem, and then I got it to open up one time, and
now it's turning off. Yeah, so the machine turns. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah, now it just cycles.
It recycles. Got it.
And I tried like just the off the hand tricks of like making sure that any residual charge was like released from the board and stuff.
Right.
But that's about it.
Usually that's a bad motherboard.
Yeah, so this problem exactly happened last year, which is why I bought the new motherboard.
Right. Was it an exact replacement motherboard or a
No.
change in model?
change in model.
Right. Alright, so let me go ahead and unplug the power. Let's see if I can just pull out a memory module and see if that potentially causes things to change. Alrighty. So it turns on.
Yeah,
Oh, I pulled out a memory module and we got video.
yeah, I have done
Okay.
that once before, and then I managed to then like after getting the driver set up, put in the memory module.
This thing has Windows 7 on it, huh? Alright.
Yeah, that's something that was just on it from the guy who had it before me.
Really? Oh, so this computer, the parts that you've replaced were new, but originally, the original parts are several years old?
Uh huh.
Okay, so, because you get a mechanical drive, in fact, you got some rust or corrosion on this screw here.
Yeah.
That's a weird place for a thumb screw on the side of a hard drive.
Yeah. This is original,
Yeah,
and this is original, and this is original, and that stuff. Oh, and the RAM cards are original.
got it.
Yep.
Okay, so it went off when you touched the RAM. I don't know if that's a coincidence. That's weird.
That was weird.
Okay, that was really weird. So yeah, it reboots. So now without the memory module installed, it at least turns on. And then you got a licensing issue with Windows 7, it looked like?
Yeah, it always says that when it opens up.
Yeah, okay, so,
I don't really know the answer to that.
okay, well, it probably broke the licensing when you upgraded or replaced the motherboard.
Oh.
Yeah, because licensing with Windows 7, looks like it's coming. Yeah, so when you change out a major part of the machine, you get this. Because the way licensing used to happen with Windows 7 is that it would marry itself to all the hardware. It still does, but it's less intrusive now with Windows 8, 9, or with 8 or 10. It's more forgiving. This, because back when Windows 7 was out, you had to pay for it. With Windows 10, if the machine originally came with Windows 7, you basically qualified for a free copy of 10. So at
Okay.
one point, this might have qualified for 10, but it looks like in upgrading your motherboard,
Uh-huh.
it broke the original licensing and Windows was never reinstalled.
Okay.
So this is the same installation from before you even messed
I
with
assume
it.
so, yeah.
Right. Now I don't even have a copy of Windows 7 to reinstall.
Okay.
Best thing I could do is reinstall 10.
Oh,
This will
okay.
probably run 10 fine,
Okay.
but then just know you're on borrowed time because Windows 10 is only valid for another 2 years.
Okay.
Because after about 2 more years, you'll no longer have any access to updates,
Okay.
which means you won't have access to any feature updates or security updates.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I
the
understand.
new thing for the last year or so has been Windows 11. If it came with Windows 10, there's no way it'll take 11. So that's where we stand. And right now, I'm kind of waiting for this thing to crash now.
Oh, you're expecting it to?
Yeah,
Okay.
since this is the first time I've seen it crash or not crash.
Yeah.
You literally just happened to touch that RAM module, so I thought maybe you bumped something, and that's why it turned off. And at this point, I'm just looking at things, and it's functioning.
Okay.
So now let's, the one thing I didn't plug in yet is a mouse. So I'm going to plug in a mouse and see if I can get any different results that way.
Okay.
Alright, so I'll take this mouse, plug this in. I just want to see if it functions. Alright, let's see. Oh, there it goes. Unsupported graphics card. There's a problem with your graphics card. Please ensure that the card meets minimum. How old was that video card?
I bought it, a year and a half ago?
Because I'm wondering, at this point, Windows 7 is so old
Yes.
that there's a lot of hardware out there. This would. I'm wondering if there's no longer a valid Windows 7 driver available for newer hardware, because Windows 7 at this point is fairly obsolete.
I was installing an Intel HD Windows 7 60 or 32-bit.
Right. Do you have anything of value on this machine?
Just maybe like photos on the.
So is it not backed up?
No. Oh, yeah. Most of it is backed up to a.
Because what I'd kind of want to do is just reinstall Windows and put 10 on this thing.
I'm okay with that.
Because 7 is sort of a, you're kind of wearing handcuffs here, because there's certain things, I can't even properly say that your card isn't bad because you probably just don't have a supported driver for it.
Okay.
It's quite possible that this newer video card, on the box it would have said Windows 8, Windows 10.
Yeah.
Probably didn't say it supported Windows 7.
Okay.
Because at this point Windows 7 is so old.
Okay.
So at this point I see a working machine. Let me plug in Ethernet. Let's keep going. Let me see if. Let's see what happens when. Alrighty. So now we got a working machine. Let's plug in Ethernet. Where is it? Okay, plug in Ethernet. So like, yeah, any updates that might be available for Windows 7 are not going to be security updates. It'll just be the updates available up to whatever year was last available.
Okay.
So let's just see what updates might be available. Check for updates. Windows can. Oh. Service is not running. Okay, yeah, so you have other technical glitches here. Okay, yeah, so the Windows Update service is broken. I really don't think it would be worth spending too much effort screwing around with Windows 7.
Okay, that's fine.
Because it's no longer a valid system. So you can either take off and come back, or you can sit here and watch me try to reinstall Windows.
Oh, I do have a couple chores I could go do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to know real quick if this thing takes 10.
Uh-huh.
Worst case scenario, because in doing so I'm going to eliminate 7.
Okay.
It might halt and we'd have an unusable collection. Why don't you stick around for 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Let me just see about getting 10 on this machine, because I'm going to know real quick
Okay.
if that's going to work. Here's my copy of 10. Alrighty. I haven't seen 7 in over a year. Yeah, you got all sorts of weird glitches here. So let's just do this. Let's go ahead and restart. And I don't know what key, maybe let's try delete F12 or delete. Let's see here. F12, F12, F12. It's F12, good. Okay, oh, this actually has a mouse supported. Good. Good. Where's the boot function? This is miscellaneous settings. System. Let's see here. Trying to boot. Power management, peripherals. Enabled. Where's our boot? Legacy, good, 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 good. Where's our boot function? I want to change the boot order. It's not showing me where it is. Oh, boot option. Let's go. Good. 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 Okay. So now we're going to go save and exit. Yes. Okay. Now, let's see if it sees our memory stick. Am I gonna have to hit F12? Let's see. Drum roll. Come on. I think it's looking at it. That's why it's hesitating. This is actually normal.
Okay.
Means it's looking at my copy of Windows 10. Yeah, that's the Windows 10 loader, that little dot.
Okay, nice.
Good. So we're going to know real quick if it at least... See, this is where I'm going to delete the contents of that drive, meaning 7 will be no more. So with 10, at least it's a bit of an upgrade in the sense that with Windows 7, there's probably a lot of software at this point you can no longer run reliably.
Yeah.
And at this point, your video card is giving this error, probably because it doesn't have a valid video card driver. So we're going to say we don't have the key, which doesn't matter. You can use Windows 10 without the key. We're just going to do Windows 10 Home. There's certain advanced features you won't have access to until you pay for a copy of 10, which you could, which I think is about $100.
Okay. Is that a one-time fee?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not a subscription like 365.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, so we're going to delete everything. And, oh man, you got a tiny 85, what do you have, you apparently, let's see what we have here. You have, where is it? Do you have an SSD in here?
I thought so.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. Yeah, you got a mechanical 500 and a tiny, okay. That SSD is so small, 75 gigs.
Yeah, it's not big.
Windows 10, probably, once it's updated, it will run out of space.
Okay.
So at this point, let's just get Windows 10 going on your mechanical drive.
Okay.
If you want to upgrade that at some point, you can. For $60, you can get a 500 gig SATA SSD.
Okay.
So this little 85 gig or whatever size, you have 85 gig access to it, but it's probably a 120. I can't tell without pulling it out. So let's just install.
I also, I'm gonna show my ignorance. I don't really know too much, but I also
fine.
have like some other cards that I was hoping
Oh, all
I
right.
might be able
Well,
to.
what do you have? Show me what you got. It looks like you. Okay, so this is totally obsolete. That's
Yeah. No
That's
worries.
an IDE hard drive.
But I had this guy.
Yeah. That looks like another SATA drive.
Would you say it's out of date as well?
No, that's out of date because you see these pins.
Yeah.
That's as of 2004 was probably when SATA. This connector replaced that in 04.
Okay.
So that's a 15 or more year old drive. This is a Seagate 1 terabyte Barracuda.
And I have these two guys.
Okay, those are laptop drives, but still physically functional if we needed to. Essentially,
This one is 750.
I think you'd be a lot happier just spending $60 on a SATA
that's
drive
fine.
that's an SSD. Because
Yeah.
a SSD is pretty much, I don't even like messing with mechanical drives if I can avoid it.
Okay.
It's just more reliable and multiple times faster, and it's only twice as expensive.
Okay.
So like a mechanical drive these days might be $50 versus 100 for 4 times the performance.
Okay.
So it looks like it's installing 10 on this mechanical drive without crashing.
That's good.
Yeah, so
Good
we're
first
making
step.
progress.
Would
Also, we still need to see if this memory chip might be part of your problem.
Sure.
So we'll just reinstall that later.
Would you say that there's any value in adding any one of these just as like capacity?
As a disk, yes, it's available to install any number of mechanical drives as you want, but essentially, $100 is going to get you a terabyte of storage.
Yeah.
That's twice what that mechanical drive is already.
Yeah.
So
No, I understand.
Yeah.
These guys, I also have like
These-
some old information that I would love
Oh.
to be able to gather. So,
So-
it's like a 2-for-1 for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
So I didn't know if you had.
well, actually,
any...
rather than paying double time on my labor, what I'd recommend is spending like $20 on an external device that turns this into a USB drive.
Okay.
And that way you can just plug it in later
Okay.
and drag your stuff around that way.
Sure.
Because this is a data drive. Let me see when this thing failed. This thing is manufactured in, where's the date code? 12335. What does that mean? I can't tell. I can tell basically that this drive is probably almost, 2012. It's about a 10-year-old drive. So this thing's on borrowed time just from its age.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm telling you to get a $20 enclosure for this drive is because if I leave this thing inside that machine, it's going to fail, and then you're going to come back to me
Sure.
And then this thing's going to potentially keep the whole machine from booting again.
Okay.
So what would be smartest is to spend $20 on an external USB adapter.
I'll look it up right now. And
Yeah.
then maybe I'll just show it to
Yeah.
you before I get it. Okay.
Yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily need my skills to do that. It's just a box.
Sure.
And then you plug it into the outside the USB, and then you have access to this.
Okay.
Because yes, you could physically take this drive, put it in the desktop, and it'll be totally usable, like adding another usable, like a D or E drive.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it fails, as it is basically due,
Yep.
you don't want it to cause the machine to hang up.
And should I do the same with these?
Yes, you can get the same sort of enclosures with those. This is a 3.5-inch drive. Those are 2.5-inch drives.
Okay, so I just look up a hard
Sa-
drive enclosure.
SATA,
SATA,
USB hard drive enclosure.
USB hard drive enclosure.
That would be a better decision than having me physically install this in this desktop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like it's just chugging along. It's installing Windows 10. Yeah, the date code is on that drive. It tells you it was built in 2012.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay.
So I tell people most IT hardware was only engineered for about 5 years. So that's kind of, once you get 5 or 6 years out of it, like when you build a new computer, the most of that hardware on the market has a 3 to 5 year warranty.
Yep.
So if you get 5 or more years out of anything and it fails, that's why a drive that's literal 10 years old is on borrowed time. Alrighty. So card is next. Alrighty. So yeah, looks like it's about to reboot. Let's see, how is my audio today? Yeah, looks like it's about to reboot. Good. Let's see, how is my audio today? All right, it's chugging along. Go ahead. Are you on Amazon?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Yeah, I looked up a SATA USB hard drive.
Yeah.
Getting
No,
like,
SATA USB enclosure. You don't
enclosure.
actually want the drive. You want to
Yeah,
be
no,
able
no,
to.
sorry. Enclosure.
It's
Yeah.
all right. You're good. Oh, you know what I need to do? All right. Let's see here. I have to take that out. Let's try this. All right.
Would this be a 2.5 inch?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other one's a 3.5-inch.
Okay. Okay, cool. This one says that it takes 2.5 and 3.5,
Good.
and it just looks like this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that way you can just, at your leisure, put that on your desk and then have access to
And
each of
all
the
three of them. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it looks like it's just chugging along. It's continuing its process of installing Windows 10, which will be technically an upgrade and probably a fix for a lot of errors you've had, including this video card that gave us our weird problems. Yeah, this is first time stuff, so this is all good.
Oh, you also suggested that I get a bit larger SSD, right?
Yeah, so you can, so a SATA SSD is what you're looking for. Samsung is my go-to brand.
Okay.
It'll be like $60 for a 500, but a terabyte is 100. So since what we're dealing with here is a mechanical 500, you may as well go all the way to a terabyte SSD.
Samsung 870 Evo SATA.
Yeah, there you go.
2.5 inch.
Yeah.
Okay.
2.5 inch would work, but this is technically, oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that'll physically work. And then you'll just have to, there's an adapter to make it function or fit in here, because this is, a desktop is technically asking for a 3.5 inch.
Oh, okay.
But when it, here.
I already have an adapter in there.
Yeah, this is an adapter. So
And
you know,
do I have one or
I
should I
don't,
buy one?
you can buy one. These are $5 or $10.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't have technically default support for a 2.5 inch drive, but that's exactly what this is.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Those are $5 or $10. Or I guess technically what you could do is just double stick tape it, because technically it's just a mount and it's not a motor, so you don't necessarily have to be too critical about where it.
Yeah, sure. It's not too heavy. It's not
Yeah.
gonna like. There's not a lot of vibe loads going on.
Right, correct.
Mhm.
So technically we can just double stick tape it.
No, I'm gonna keep it looking nice. So
Sure,
I'll get
that's fine.
a thing.
Yeah. So this is just chugging along nicely without restarting or crashing. So I wonder if this memory chip might be part of your problem.
I would be interested because since I haven't swapped out those memory cards, when I
Right.
was troubleshooting last year, one
Right.
thing I did was like I tried starting with just one and then just the other,
Yeah,
and then I like moved them between the slots,
right.
and I could never identify that like one of the two was the problem, but having both all of a sudden made a problem.
Got it. Okay, well, we're all operating on one, so we'll see.
Sure.
Let's get a good copy of Windows in here and go from there. You had some dirt in there. Alrighty.
There's a one version that comes with some sets of wires, and it's one that doesn't.
Let me see.
That one versus
Oh,
this
that's,
one.
yeah, you don't need any of the wires.
So this one down here.
Yeah.
should be fine.
Let's just chug along. Do you use this thing on the Wi-Fi or Ethernet?
Wi-Fi.
Okay. Getting ready.
If I get this replacement larger SSD, would there be any purpose in keeping the smaller one that I already have
You can
as
keep
well?
it in there. It's just such a size.
And then I
that-
would just like run maybe like if I was running something like maybe a large game, I would just put it on there.
No, because you won't even for a larger game, like any 3D game, is generally going to have like a 40 gig download.
Okay,
That's half of that drive.
that's too much.
You're gonna get crashes and not realize that the reason you need empty space for a computer to function.
Okay.
So when a drive comes full, like a lot of times people bring me an Apple computer,
Yeah.
and the iCloud just takes all their cloud content and dumps it onto their laptop, and they don't realize the hardware is fine, but their drive, because Apple still sells those laptops with undersized drives,
Yep.
it'll clobber the drive and the machine won't boot, and everyone thinks it's a bad drive. Even people at the techs at the Apple store, oh, you must have a bad drive.
Okay.
No, your iCloud account wasn't smart enough to say this drive just doesn't have enough room.
Just keeps filling it.
Yeah. So if you overwhelm a machine with too much data and it doesn't have enough room to move, see what happens is, what did I just do with that memory chip? I just had it in my hand. Oh, it's over here. This stores everything you see on the screen. So when you run out of this, it uses that empty space on the hard drive. So if you don't have empty hard drive space and this is all filled up, it's going to crash.
Okay.
So if you try to load up a program or your temporary memory onto a smaller drive, it's going to run out of space.
So, out of all of the things I have here, this
Yeah.
is the largest, but it's pretty out of date. You said.
Yeah,
And it's a
any mechanical. Yeah, I don't really.
This is 750.
Yeah, that's a sizable
I could get
drive.
I could get another mount just for this.
Yeah.
And then have this one permanently in there
Yes.
with some extra space.
Yes, yes.
I'll do that.
And I just expect, I basically the equivalent analogy I use is like a $250,000 car. That's like the 5-year-old or 6-year-old hard drive. after of so many years.
Just having it as extra though.
Yeah,
for
that's
now
fine.
seems okay.
And just know that they're on borrowed time.
Yeah.
It's almost like you don't drive around without insurance because it's an unsafe thing to do.
Yeah.
Have it backed up knowing it's going to fail sooner than later.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for this one, I probably need the mount with the wires because I don't have.
No, because that all comes with this anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I
that's
can
what I mean.
support both the new
Yeah.
SSD and this. Okay.
Yeah, mechanically, this power supply is what makes that possible.
Okay.
It has the default SATA connection for the power, and then the SATA connection for the data comes off the motherboard.
Okay.
Yeah. So you already have support by default from the motherboard. What you probably need, no, it looks like you already have two SATA cables already. You're good.
2, you said?
You already have the two in here, so you could get more SATA cables if you want, if you're gonna leave these in here. SATA cables are the data cables.
That was on the other option.
So
yeah.
SATA cables.
The one that came with this.
Yeah, I think, was it actual SATA cables that it was coming with? Yeah, that's what that is. Good. Yeah.
Okay, so I will get one set of these.
Yeah, right. Cool. There you go. So it looks like it's just about done installing Windows 10. That's a good upgrade because now it's a usable setup. Because what I'm going to do now is confirm that by doing some updates, and hopefully it sees all the drivers and we don't have any weirdo problems. So yeah, your hardware, I mean technically your memory chip might be a problem, but it's functioning on your, how much memory do we have here? Is each of these?
Those are 8, I think.
Okay, well, 8 is technically enough to function. 16 is my recommended minimum.
Okay.
So yeah.
So another thing I should buy?
Well, no, you're 16 here, assuming we don't have
Oh,
a
if
bad
we
chip.
get both in there.
Yeah. So we'll see if this works. So far, everything's good.
Not giving up yet. I like that.
Yeah. No, I try hard. I mean, I want to see it work, and you know, the first thing I realized is that Windows 7 is hard to deal with because I don't support. No one supports it.
Yeah, I mean, this has been fun for me because like I never planned on like having my own personal computer even.
Yeah.
And then my buddy just like left this behind, and I was like, oh, I'll try and learn something by making it work. And
Got
I've
it.
gotten it to work for a year and a half, so I don't mind putting a little bit more money in it now
Right.
and learning something new.
All right. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Richard.
Richard. Got it. It's about to ask me. That's why. You want your username to be Richard?
That's fine.
Alrighty. Alrighty. We're going to continue with limited because I don't want to be a Microsoft account yet. So we're going to do Richard. No password needed right now. Now we're going to plug the Ethernet back in. Good. So now that's plugged in. Skip. Not now, don't need that. Cortana.
Do you post like how-tos and stuff?
Well, sort of. So this is a live interaction. So people are watching this conversation, so they can chat in the Facebook, in the YouTube chat,
Oh, okay.
or if they want to call me live, well, if you're not necessarily here,
Yeah.
I can have that conversation, and it would be sort of the same sort of technical interaction
That's
between
cool.
he and whoever's asking me questions. So that's the gimmick. Yeah.
Hey.
So I only have like 200 subscribers. I've been at it seriously for about 3 or 4 months
Uh-huh.
since I've been here at this office. I've been in business on my own for about 10 years. And then I was online on YouTube, but not really able to give a real honest effort for up until I moved to this office because it was a smaller office and I literally just didn't have the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here it looks nice.
Yeah, this is usable, and technically I think I have other ideas. I don't like this office being upstairs mainly
Oh, okay.
because it's not conducive to what I'm after because I've got people knocking on my door and they don't realize it's just a retail outlet. Come on in.
Sure. Yeah.
And then
exactly.
people don't necessarily know how to find me. I have to walk them through it. So I think I need to find a more traditional retail space that's
Sure.
ground level on the street. So I've only got 8 more months on my lease here.
That's
So,
good. Yeah, you're not
yeah.
fixed into something too long.
Yeah. So
And there seems to be a decent amount of turnover on this street.
right.
So you.
I've been in the South Bay my whole life.
Yeah, yeah.
I was up in Goat Hill in Manhattan for 5 years. I was down in the Riviera Village for 4 years, but that space over there was too small. I outgrew it, which is why I went up to Manhattan, and then that building was falling apart. So I moved in expecting that to be temporary. I expected 2 years. It turned out to be 5. And now here, I'm just not quite as happy as I was hoping. So it's a nice. This is definitely an upgrade as far as the quality of the building.
It's incremental, right?
Yeah, it's incremental. But technically, I don't want my customers climbing up the stairs, climbing down the stairs, or not having trouble. Parking's not the most conducive.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I need to find something a little more friendly for both you guys and me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's what I'm up to. So like, if you go to YouTube now, you can watch us.
Cool.
Yeah. It's on Facebook too, so I got like 5,000 friends that are watching. Not 5,000 viewers, but I mean.
Yeah.
5,000 friends on Facebook that have access to this live. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have some good reviews online as well.
I work hard. Yeah. Thanks. There we go. We got 1 viewer on Facebook. One viewer on YouTube. That might actually be me. But anyway, cool. So everything's just chugging along. It is an older, slower machine, so this is all happening at a normal pace.
Sure.
I don't remember the last time I installed Windows on a mechanical drive. It's literally like twice as fast on an SSD. So when you do that upgrade, it will be a noticeable improvement.
When I had installed the SSD, is there some process that you need to go through to transfer it from the mechanical drive to the SSD?
So you would end up doing what I just did, is install Windows from scratch. And then you could slave the other drive and drag your stuff over as you suggested, or get one of those enclosure drives.
Okay.
Either way, I'm just saying, I'd recommend again installing whole drives into a machine like this, because they're on borrowed time and eventually going to fail.
Yeah.
That's my only logic. But essentially, you're going to reinstall Windows on that brand new drive.
While I already have it on the other drive,
Well,
and then I will uninstall it from the.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily. What I call uninstall, it's different than just formatting this drive. So what you would do is you'd format this drive so that it's no longer a bootable drive. It's just a storage-only drive. So when you install Windows on the SSD, that'll be a built-up Windows installation, waiting for you to install all your programs. You want your stuff on that drive that's installed, because that drive is multiple times faster.
Yeah.
You don't want to install anything on the mechanical drive just because it's slower, even if it's brand new.
Sure.
An SSD that's cheap is still going to be multiple times faster than an expensive mechanical drive.
Okay.
So if you can avoid a mechanical drive, do it.
Okay.
Let's see here. So now I'm going to do some updates and make sure all the drivers are available for everything here. Let's see here. So yeah, this hardware will not take 11.
Do you know what the limiting factor is there?
Well, there's several things. One, you need at least 4 gigs of RAM, which this has, but it also doesn't have the TPM2 chip. That's an upgrade. That's a security chip that only machines built in the last 3 or 4 years have.
Okay.
So if this motherboard is 5 or more years old, it's not going to have it.
Okay.
That's really the number one reason.
Okay.
And then it has to be like an i5 version. I don't know what series of i5 it needs to be, but I think it needs to be at least an i5.
I think I have an i5 installed.
I forgot what generation it needs to be, but that's essentially.
Okay.
It needs to be not necessarily the first or second generation of whatever the i5 is that it needs to be.
Yeah, I did try when I was upgrading. I did try to buy a new one.
Got it.
So I think I did have it more recently at least.
So there's 3 or 4 major technical limitations for Windows 11. Essentially, the hardware needs to be less than about 3 or 4 years old.
All of it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. So now it's got a bunch of drivers to do. Let's see what driver updates there are available. So we got Intel chipset drivers. Then there's your AMD drive. So is that?
That's the that's the graphics card, I think.
Oh, all right. Got it. Let's see here.
It's a RX 580.
Yeah. I think it's doing the video card driver right now. That's why it just went blank. Interesting. go. It's doing the drivers. That's why it went blank. There we go. Oh. Usually it doesn't blink this long or go blank that long.
Mechanical disc.
Right, yeah, that's literally probably the case. So from now on, from here out, it's just hurry up and wait. At this point, I'm thinking it's a fairly reliable setup.
Okay.
So the only thing I've seen that fixed the crashing is that we removed a memory chip. We still have to physically reinstall this and see if that continues to be a problem.
Sure.
Either this chip is bad or a module on the board is bad.
Sure.
Now, I literally just blew that out, which could have fixed the cleanliness of the slot. There might have been garbage in the slot.
Sure.
So
Okay.
hopefully the memory isn't a problem. But otherwise, it's hurry up and wait. But now you have Windows 10, which makes this a much more usable machine. Device Manager, let's see what other drivers are updatable. Device Manager will let me check to see if there are any drivers that are flat out missing. Yeah, this is definitely mechanical. This is just slow because of the, see, even if that was a healthy drive, this wouldn't necessarily be slow. It's just the performance of a mechanical drive I'm not used to. Because generally I don't mess with mechanical drives anymore.
Yeah.
So it looks like your network controller still needs an upgrade, meaning your Wi-Fi card still needs to be updated, which will happen in these updates. So right now, the reason I'm online is because your Ethernet driver came included with Windows 10, but it didn't include your Wi-Fi driver, which is why it says network controller minus that.
Yep.
So I'm gonna do some more updates, and eventually the network driver will include the Wi-Fi update.
Okay.
So, let's see here. There we go. Let's see here. Turn that over. Let's see here. Pending install. Almost there. Eventually, the button that says restart now will restart, and then it will finish installing some of these updates. Alrighty.
Could you,
Yeah.
earlier you
Go
mentioned
ahead.
something about when I do switch out the cards, I have to do some kind of slave process. I didn't understand what that meant.
Okay, so when you get a new drive, like an SSD,
Uh-huh.
you're going to physically, I guess master and slave are older terms, because you used to install mechanical drives one after the other on the same cable. So
Oh.
some of my old terminology came out of nowhere.
Okay.
But essentially, that's the legacy verbiage. The SSD that you install will be your master drive, and then these other drives will be your slave drives.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not. It's more like context. It's not necessarily like a way in which I have to install them, like one at a time or something.
No, okay, so basically, when you install Windows, even if you only install Windows on your SSD, and physically, let's just assume that the mechanical drives weren't part of the picture, you can add those mechanical drives later without reinstalling any software. You just physically plug them in, and your motherboard, by default, will just see them. And then you would do what's called formatting those drives. And that creates those drive letters.
Mhm.
So like if you install all 4 or 5 of these drives,
Yeah.
you theoretically have drive C, which is where Windows sits, E, F, D.
Right now, it's assuming that the mechanical one is going to be C now.
Right.
But if I put in an SSD and have Windows installed on that one, then I have to tell it that that's the new C.
No, you don't have to manually label the letter. You have to manually format the drive if it's not already formatted. So what I'm going to check right here,
Okay.
when I go here, so right now, your SSD doesn't have a partition, but it's physically installed. So I'm going to spend 3 or 4 seconds formatting that drive, and you'll see it.
Okay.
So if I go to right-click the Start button,
Oh.
and I go to Disk Management, it's going to see that that drive was never physically removed, and give me the opportunity to format it.
Okay.
So, there it is. So this black line is your 85 gigs of unformatted drive.
Okay.
because I was about to install Windows on it. That's why I formatted it. And then I realized that's impractical because it's too small. Windows, once it's updated, takes almost all of that.
Okay.
So now we're just going to do new simple volume, and that'll be, I have to hit next a couple more times. There, it's going to make it D. I just hit next a bunch of times, so now it's formatting the drive, which takes another second or two, and you'll be able to put up to 75 gigs of whatever on that drive.
Before doing that, it was not available.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what you'll do for any additional drives that you were to add once Windows is up.
Copy.
See, now you got this D drive waiting for data.
Okay.
And now technically, even though you got Windows on this mechanical drive, that D drive is the faster drive, but it physically, just practically speaking, we can probably pull off installing Windows 10, but literally within the next 6 months, probably get so many updates that it'll run out of room.
Okay.
So in fact, let's see how much data Windows is right now before it's fully updated. So use space, it's not totally updated, but Windows as of right now is taking up 25 gigs. That's it's basic principle that I tell people not to go beyond 50 or 60% full on a drive.
Okay.
So you're pushing your luck already. I mean, it's going to be higher than that.
Yep.
Once I get all these updates installed.
Okay.
So we're just waiting on some of these in fact, when we restart, let's see what happens and see how much more space. So right now we're taking up about 25 gigs. Let's go ahead and restart, and after it's finished, see how many gigs are actually taken up. So let's go ahead and restart again.
Maybe this 75 gig SSD would be like a good candidate for putting the like AMD driver and the.
No, so the driver's all part of Windows. You want your main system,
Oh, okay. Got it.
Windows and all the games that you play on the fastest drive possible.
Okay.
So that would be your SSD, but you also need to make sure that SSD has enough room to move around for
Extra.
your stuff to move around.
Sure. Yeah.
So essentially, what I'm saying or implying is that it's best to just avoid mechanical drives whenever possible.
Okay.
$200 is going to get you a 2 terabyte SSD.
Okay.
So if that's the sort of data that you think you need, it might make sense. In fact, actually, because this form factor we're talking about, the SATA, that's the cheaper, older technology. So probably, if you go 2 terabyte SSD, see what your options are, and that'll tell you how expensive they are. What you don't want is an M2 because this motherboard's not modern enough for that. The newer technology for an SSD is not what this supports.
Okay.
So
I see
what do you
a
say?
lot of different brands. Obviously,
Samsung's my go-to brand.
okay. I do see a 179 2 terabyte SSD.
Yeah, there you go. So not quite $200 for 2 terabytes. There you go. Which eliminates probably the desire or the need to have a mechanical drive, because that's going to be enough room for most people.
Okay.
You figure a mechanical 1 terabyte drive is probably 40 or 50 bucks, but it's like a quarter the speed. That's obviously slower.
Okay.
I like this. The cool thing is, by doing a whole Windows install and doing all the updates, I get to confirm reliability. Because the chances of this thing crashing later in your possession is less. This is sort of like me, the mechanic, driving it around the block to make sure it's reliable. Because by doing these updates, you're pushing the limits a bit.
I do see two options with Samsung. One
Yeah.
is a QVO SATA and one's an EVO SATA.
One has a better warranty. I think one has a 3-year warranty. The other has a 5-year.
Oh, okay.
I think if you click on it, you'll get the details.
Sure.
Yes, I think we're moving good. Yeah, see now the video card driver's installed, the fans on the video card were not spinning. Cool.
Okay.
Now they are spinning, so the driver is in place. I mean, it's when you look in there, they're not always going to spin because it's sort of like a car. If it's not overheating, the fans aren't necessarily needing to spin.
But at least at startup, you get a little
Yeah,
test.
that's the first time I saw the fan spin since the driver was installed. Good. Okay, so now that some of those updates are done, now let's see. Come on. Come on. Oh, there we are. Okay, yeah, so Windows right now is taking up 25 gigs. Let's see what other updates are on. But otherwise, minus me installing this memory chip, I think we have a reliable machine. Looks like we got scammers in the chat room.
How do you tell?
Some weird name, like hot photo my sister. It looks like some sort of bot. Yeah, right.
Welcome to the chat.
Right. Welcome to the chat, computer. Oh gosh. Yeah. See, these updates are still not done. Yeah. Sometimes I get regulars. I've made 3 or 4 friends from all over the world that actually call me up on the phone. Got one guy in Canada, got one guy in the UK, 2 or 3 people from the UK. Most of my subscribers are from India, but I've only got like 230 fans, so slow growth, I guess.
Yeah, you start out.
Yeah, I'm getting just a little less than 1 subscriber a day.
Are there certain types of videos you find get more attention?
Well, like the questions that you've asked are offering up a lot of useful content. You can imagine these are questions that you and a million other people have.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's almost like when you're in school, you're too intimidated to ask questions.
Yeah.
I was watching, like MIT has their own channel.
Uh-huh.
And it was a basic class on aerodynamics.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing. You got a bunch of MIT students too intimidated to ask.
Oh man, it only
simple
requires one
questions.
person, and all of a sudden everyone will be
Yeah.
sick. Yeah.
Well, the teacher literally asked, "Has anyone ever played with a paper airplane?" And everyone was afraid to say that
they had or had not.
had or had not. It's like, wow. These guys all probably have IQs darn near 160, and they're too intimidated to say, "Yeah, I used to play with airplanes." So, yeah.
I think only those that are willing to ask questions moving forward in life.
Right, because essentially, I think who was it, Jordan Peterson? He was saying, if you're asking that question, you're probably not the only one with that question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a million other people that with the same sort of. Does that make sense? And then occasionally, the teacher's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, thank you for asking," There's a caveat to what we just talked about.
Yeah, it's only probably like 1 in 50 that you'll have a teacher that gets mad at you for asking questions.
Right.
And you learn pretty early, and you're like, all right.
Right.
Fuck
Well,
that.
hopefully the teacher's ego's bruised enough early on in their career, because eventually they do get the students that are smart.
That's why asshole students actually do service
Right.
by humbling teachers
Right.
for the future students to
Yeah,
ask questions.
and you see those examples portrayed in Hollywood sometimes, like the math geniuses that say, "Well, you think you could teach the class?" And then he literally stands up in the class and does a big, all complicated algorithm on and the teacher's like,
Oh shit!
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm gonna be a little bit nicer to the next.
Right. So at this point, we're just doing some updates. Let's see, pending restart, pending install. So yeah, in order to get all these updates installed, sometimes you do have to restart the machine 3 or 4 times.
Why?
Just because
Every single time it's just like rewriting a
well, you
part of
get
it?
prerequisites because they're not necessarily installed in the proper order.
Oh, okay.
You get different, like you might have an older driver that's required to have installed first to pre-qualify you for the later
next
update.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any way I'm looking for like a sign or something that says mechanical or says SSD?
Well,
Like, how do I know?
It's sort of like looking at the difference between a mechanical engine and an electric motor.
Sure.
You just get used to it. But I can tell you just at a glance that these are mechanical drives. So an SSD, let me see if I have one floating around. An SSD is lighter, thinner. Technically, you can kind of tell by looking at it, but you can't really with that one being installed. It's plastic, basically. A mechanical drive is going to have a metal enclosure.
Oh.
An SSD is going to have a plastic one. Yeah, that's all metal with a circuit board on the bottom. So
is this circular feature?
Well, when I say metal, so it's got a metal out and then circuitry on the bottom. Yeah. That's all mechanical. That circuit board would not be exposed on an SSD.
Okay.
That's all buried.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have one floating around. I used to, but I threw them out. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think I have one floating around. No. Nope. Anyway. Cool. So after this, I'll shut it down, put this memory chip in, and if it starts doing weird things again, then we know we got a hardware issue.
Okay.
We'll find out.
What's flash memory size?
Well, technically an SSD is flash memory. What are you reading?
It says flash memory size 2.
2, let's see.
I didn't know what that.
2 terabytes probably.
Oh.
Is that?
It is a 2 terabyte.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it should say 2 TB then.
Right, like where are the units?
Right. It's not telling you what units that 2 is.
Okay.
Come on. Okay, so that was another gigabyte worth of updates. Yeah, think we
So
have
you
one
c-
more round of updates, and then this thing will be complete.
Okay, so you just keep basically
Yes.
going to this page, checking again,
Yes.
checking again. Okay.
Yes.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
So my setup at home, I
Right.
do I have like a little like mounting place for my laptop that
Yeah.
has like a single USB,
Yeah.
and then I got like a USB 3.0.
So it's a dock?
Yeah, dock, and
So-
then I got switcher.
Yeah.
So I can, and I plug in like my screens and my laptop and my like keyboard into the dock,
Right.
and then I have one USB going to either the laptop or to my desktop,
Yeah.
and then I just press the button to go back and forth.
Right.
But that
That's
obviously means that the HDMI's that aren't
Yeah.
actually going into the graphics card.
correct.
Is that
Well,
actually
the
a hindrance?
graphics, yes, it would, because the graphics card can't perform optimally through a dock. But it sounds like your video card's going to the dock, and the dock is split off between two monitors.
Yeah, it's got two monitors and just like periphery stuff like mouse.
Okay, it
and
sounds like
stuff.
a KVM switch, if you have an AB switch.
I have a 3.0 switch.
Okay,
button.
so that sounds like a KVM, which basically stands for keyboard video monitor. So you have the same keyboard and mouse, but two different monitors.
Yeah, well, the monitors go to a dock. The dock goes to the switch,
Yeah,
and then the switch goes to either the laptop or the.
but you only have
desktop.
one mouse and keyboard.
And
Sounds like a KVM. But a dock might also, it's like a combo dock slash KVM.
two different things. Yeah.
Yeah. So a KVM was like someone like me sits in the closet and they can administer multiple computers, where you got I'm thinking backwards. You got one monitor and multiple computers.
I've got two monitors and two computers. Yep. And
Okay.
and I have everything go into the dock. The
Yeah.
dock goes into the switch, and then the switch either goes to the laptop or the desktop.
All right, but it seems so for best performance, the video in the computer needs to be plugged in directly to the monitor. I don't
And it
think.
has to be the graphics card.
Yeah, well, if you're plugged in to the motherboard, it'll function, but the motherboard is a different card, and you're
So
not.
it
gonna-
doesn't get to like actually utilize the graphics card because it's not plugged in through the graphics card.
If you want more real estate, it'll give you that, but it won't give you gaming performance. The gaming performance all happens in the video card, not the graphics card that's built into the motherboard.
Okay.
It'll function, it just won't give you performance-oriented performance.
Okay.
It'll give you plain Jane, barely does more than just give you more real estate. Like that setup, these two monitors,
Uh huh.
you can technically just stretch your desktop across two of them, and that onboard graphics will allow you to do that in conjunction with the upgraded video. But the upgraded video will give you actual better performance. So like literally speaking, if you had a big old complicated 3D game and you dragged it from the onboard graphics to the video graphics would be noticeably better, and you'd literally be able to drag it across screens and notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't understand that. I thought that like just having the graphics card connected to the motherboard, even if you had the HDMI going into the motherboard, then the graphics card was still supporting
Right,
the
no.
function.
No, the graphics card that's expandable needs to be what the HDMI or the DVI or I didn't see if that had VGA on the back, but
That's what it has to
essentially-
be plugged into.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where the performance comes from. And then literally speaking, like that motherboard takes two cards, you can use two identical cards and get better performance that way too. I haven't seen it in a while because it's an expensive upgrade, because you've essentially got two identical cards and you're getting that extra performance because they're both working in tandem.
Okay.
So that's another way. So that's the one experience where one monitor can actually pull performance off of the other card. So they're
Yeah.
talking to each other. And there's a cable that would connect the two cards together.
I saw there was an extra opening for a
Yeah.
cable. Okay.
So if you had another identical card to this,
Uh-huh.
you can plug it
Then
into
you-
here, and they'll talk to each other with the driver update.
Got it. The same does not hold true, obviously, with the motherboard. though.
Correct. As it's a different card, and the motherboard video is totally not performance driven.
Okay.
It's just to get.
It
a
is really
display.
helpful to be able to move the real estate around, but
Yeah.
it is good to know that like if I'm ever running into graphics problems with a game or something, then I should plug in differently.
Right. Yeah, your game is going to want that video card. If ever a video game doesn't work, your video card needs to be able to function. And then in this case, I think you're fine. You have a 520 watt video card. I'm sorry, power supply. But if you were to get another identical video card, you're going to want to get a bigger power supply, because that power supply needs to be able to shove a bunch of power to both cards. You're doubling up on the consumption.
Sure.
So you need to be able to pull that much more power out of the wall. which is what your power supply allows you to do. And like this is a 750, my test bench power supply. So it's a third more powerful than your 500 or so. And they're inexpensive enough to where if you're gonna go ahead and double up on your video card, just get another bigger 1,000-watt power supply.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's gonna be a more reliable experience too. And the other thing is, well, this video card only has one power tail, but some of the bigger, more modern cards, they got two, like this little pigtail here.
Yep.
It would potentially use that. So you're not dealing with that. The latest thing in the news is that the NVIDIA, there's a really high-end, very expensive card that's out there right now.
Yeah.
And I guess the electrical engineers didn't get the numbers quite right. It's literally melting in people's possession. So one of the ways you can eliminate the overheating is to have an overkill power supply so that the video card doesn't stress out the stress on the cables that come from the power supply to the video card.
Yeah, just improve your power management.
Yeah, but apparently, even with a really large power supply,
You're still
we're having meltdowns on people's desks. It's stupid.
You got to build your own little like heat dissipation sheets.
Right, right, and that's what. Yeah, those heat sinks should keep those problems from happening, but that's not the case.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like what was? There was some kind of problem when I was growing up with like Xboxes where they would always like overheat, and you had to.
I forgot which generation of gaming box that was, but yeah, occasionally they under-engineer it,
Yeah.
or they don't engineer it to last more than several years, and stuff just overheats. So yeah, and an Xbox technically is just a PC, and the parts are sort of proprietary, but it is essentially the same sort of hardware you'd find under the hood of a computer.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff fails just because they're not engineered right, and occasionally it's like, how does an engineer who's a skilled engineer mess this up?
Yeah.
But occasionally it happens.
I'm an engineer. I know how it happens.
Right? Oh, yeah. Well, no, my friend who's an engineer, he's a literal rocket scientist. He talks about that triangle of, do you want it fast and quick, or do you want it cheap and slow?
Yep.
Yeah. That triangle. I think that's I forgot exactly how. Yeah. But if you're a manager, you know. Yeah.
Does he work at SpaceX?
No, he spent 30 years at Boeing. He's retired now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that where you are?
Yeah.
Well, are you an engineer?
Yeah.
All right.
But not an electrical engineer.
Right. Got it.
I have. Think that when you're in engineering is only when you realize how different the different disciplines are.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah.
If when you meet like your friends, they're like, "Oh, don't you know this?" And you're like,
Right.
I spend no time on that.
No, I guess I've done that to my friend. I mean, he is probably a couple years younger than my mom, but essentially, I just assume he knows certain things. Like I'm an RVer,
Okay.
and I rattle off Class C, Class A, Class B.
Yeah.
If you're in RVs, you know what those are, right? Well, okay. Well,
Sure.
you didn't know what a Class A motorhome was, and it's basically the big bus-sized RV.
Yeah.
And Class C is where you got the van or the pickup truck poking out the front.
Oh, okay.
So with basic knowledge like that, I just kind of assume someone as bright and educated as him
Would
know.
know. Right.
Right. I grew up around RVs, so I thought it was common knowledge. So, but yeah, it's that sort of thing. And you just assume. And one of the things he said, and how he always managed to always have a job as an engineer, is be a generalist rather than a specialist. So he's been in IT, he's
Yep.
been an electrical engineer, he's been a mechanical engineer.
Oh wow.
All throughout.
That's interesting.
So that's how he has always managed to have a job available. So I guess if you're too niche, then you can potentially, oh, we don't need you right now, and then you got to go find yourself another place to put yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah, and I'm just in IT, but I don't write code, so I can't go sit behind a computer and upload code like a lot of people can. I'm more labor oriented.
Sure.
So, I never got into code probably because I'm fairly dyslexic. Yeah. So I'm fairly mechanically inclined. I like tinkering with the motorhome. So.
That's always a fun project.
Yeah. You know,
I had a friend who made we used to work with me, quit, and he got like his own place or his own RV to
Right.
do up, and I got to help him out for a summer.
Oh,
So
cool.
it can be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and it's a lot of work because even whether you buy a modern one or an old one, like my dad was management down in Downey where mine was built.
Yeah.
So that was my connection to the industry, even though I don't technically consider myself an Uber expert. I'm just inclined, and of course my dad's still here, so that gives us stuff to talk about over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's always telling me, oh, do this, and he's 83 years old, but he's still sharp and able to walk me through. Oh, okay, cool, and things start working.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but essentially it's 45 years old. It's an old 440 giant carburetor. Yeah. But that's how I spend my time away from the modern tech. In fact, I was up there a few hours ago. Let's see here. And I pay for storage, and it's almost like having a separate office, because of course it's an RV. I get all the creature comforts of an RV in a protected space, so I pay a few $100 a month for basically a suite away from here.
Pretty nice.
So, and I have a 40 gig hotspot here on my phone. So this is like our 4th time restarting. We have one more update. It's actually, so my installer I installed Windows on was probably 6 months out of date. That's this version 22H2. That's probably a 6-month newer version of Windows 10.
Okay.
And then you'll be totally up to date once this is done. And this is why you want to make sure you have enough space to function. Because technically you probably still have a little bit more space available on that SSD, but eventually you're going to run out, and then you're just going to end up having to reinstall Windows on some other place.
Yep.
So that's the logic. And then we still have to put this in and see if it kills it. Cool.
Do you know any good places for me to dispose of things like this?
There's an e-cycle person. Actually, the Hyperion plant in front of the airport, there's a recycle place.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of cities do it too, and individuals.
Okay.
Let me just Google it, because everyone's always asking me. I don't
Yeah,
know what they're
I've got like a whole bag of stuff that I'm trying to drop off today.
Let me do Hyperion e-waste. There we are. Okay, Hyperion Safe Center. There we go. 7660 West Imperial Highway, in Playa del Rey. So just take your bag of stuff and drop it off there. And if you're worried about it, smack those mechanical drives with a hammer, and you should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people are totally intimidated by leaving their drives with someone. I just tell them, if you're really that worried, smack it hard. No one's getting your data.
Okay.
I don't know how SpaceX deals with their IT stuff. I imagine they got some pretty high-tech ways of disposing of drives.
Yeah, I would be interested to ask. I've got some friends that I could ask.
Right. But these days, an SSD isn't magnetic, so they can't really just degauss them. They have to physically destroy them or dismantle them.
Yeah, drop them off like a 20-story building.
Right, right. Well, an SSD, technically, if you drop it, because there's no moving parts, it's probably a lot more durable. Because this is an SSD. This is of 256 gigs right here. That's a little later model laptop.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had to manually so I turned this into a USB drive because the rest of their Dell fell apart. So I just grabbed the data and I'm putting it on this.
Ah.
So, oh, actually that's for a different customer. Hers is already done. This poor guy, bit-locked his machine, so now I can't get his data because it's encrypted. So hopefully they can log into their Microsoft account and potentially get the key.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't realize how encryption works.
Yeah.
So now that their laptop is physically destroyed, I think it took a tumble off a car, and I can't turn that drive into a USB drive without BitLocker saying I need your key. So hopefully their key is in their Microsoft account. If it's not, they're up a creek. And that's why I beat everyone up over backing up. Have that mechanical, that's the other thing. If you're going to back up long term to a physical drive.
I have a 2 terabyte backup.
Is it a mechanical drive?
Probably.
Okay, yeah, if it's 2 terabyte, it probably is. But my point is, mechanical drive, like a car that sits, it's not good for it. So a mechanical drive that never gets used is likely to fail just because you have lubricated rubber and metal parts that need to be used. So spin that drive up every 6 months.
Oh, okay.
But if it's an SSD, it's going to be reliable indefinitely, potentially forever if it never gets touched because there's no moving parts to break down.
Okay.
So that's, a lot of people don't think about that, but an SSD for a USB drive is a lot less common than people don't think about, because a mechanical drive is $50 for a terabyte.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in long-term storage, always put it in the cloud, and at least one cloud account. And then if you're going to keep it literally on a shelf somewhere, use an SSD long term, and then label it so you know what date
Sure.
it was left. But a mechanical drive, I see it all the time. People bring me a mechanical drive, they think it's brand new because it's sat there for 2 years, and then it doesn't spin out because it's stuck, because the rubber pieces are no longer round because they didn't spin often enough,
Yeah, sure.
and then the lubrication didn't make its way all the way through,
Mm-hmm.
just like a car that gets left
That makes
neglected.
sense. I definitely, on happenstance, use mine probably every 6 months, so that's good.
Yeah.
But, make sure to
Just
guide
spin it up. I mean, it's almost like a car. If you just go drive the car around the block once every 6 months, it's better for it than allowing it to sit.
it. Sure.
So. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, 27. Yeah, so we're almost up to 30 gigs. Once you install Office and any other games or data that you have, then you're really almost no space available in that other drive. So this is pretty much it. I think we have a working machine. I'm going to shut it down after this update and we'll see if this crashes it. Appearing safe sender, that's what they call it. All right. That's good. Okay, restart. This should be the last update. I guess that Aaron Carter, the teeny bopper, was found dead today.
Aaron Carter?
Yeah, the blonde kid. I guess he was.
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, I have no idea what he's been doing for the last 20 years, but
Yeah, I don't know.
Following breaking news here on Live Now from Fox.
So yeah,
Jesus.
wow. He was younger than us.
Definitely.
Yeah. What kind of manager are you, or what type of department?
Engineer.
You are an engineer?
Yeah.
Cool.
I,
But you manage that department also?
no, I'm an individual contributor.
All right.
I work in life support systems.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Used to be a test engineer,
Cool.
so fluid mechanics, that's my forte.
Sweet. How often is Elon on the premises? It seems like he's an international star. He's everywhere.
I don't know how he does it. He, when I started there, he would be there every week.
Right.
And I think he still is a similar cadence, but not in Hawthorne. Now he's in Texas, probably.
Oh, right. Because of the Tesla.
Yeah.
move. Right.
And the Tesla move, and they're working on Starship there.
Right.
So, and he's the chief engineer. So
Right.
wherever the biggest technical problem is, that's where he's going to be.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Seems like as an engineer, he's a jack of all trades sort of engineer.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. It's pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. He's fun to watch or follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he interview? Does he interview everyone personally? to
Not
get the job?
anymore. He
Oh,
used to. He used to actually until the end of the year that I was hired. I personally was handed off to be hired, interviewed by a VP instead.
Right.
That was when he was transitioning to stopping doing that. So.
Got it. Yeah. And of course now he's got Twitter.
Now he's got Twitter.
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun to
Yeah.
see. See what happens.
Right.
So, one thing that I'm a little bit confused about
Yeah, go ahead.
is that you were saying that some of the problems that we're running into obviously can be solved by upgrading your, like running Windows 10 instead of 7.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Because now your video card isn't giving us any errors.
yeah,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, the hardware did work with Windows 7 at one point.
Yeah.
It is older hardware, so it was like at one point paired to be used
Right.
with Windows.
I can't say with confidence what kind of problems you had other than the obvious errors.
Yeah, right.
So, and then the physical video card was kind of tilted and kind of hanging sideways.
Yeah,
That kind of told me something was up.
yeah.
So, in me just reseating it and screwing it down tight, that might have made it a more reliable experience. I don't know why it might not have been reliable before, except that I still think this might cause it to start to reboot.
Yeah,
We still might be dealing with a hardware issue with this one memory chip.
Yeah, that'd be
So-
interesting to see.
Yeah, so before we end this out, when we finish up this update, I'll turn it all the way off. I'll plug this memory chip in and we'll see if it does the same thing. So either you have a bad memory chip or you have a bad memory slot, or I blew it all out and now dust is no longer the problem. So it might be one of those three. But part of the reason I was excited to just do Windows install plus the updates is because I get to see it go around the block and not crash.
Yep.
So we've been able to do that minus this 8 gigs of memory. I'm showing this on camera.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll be able to watch this on YouTube, this whole conversation, if you
Great.
follow me. And of course, if you go through my whole channel, you'll probably find other fixes that you won't need me for because you saw me do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate.
Cool.
Because I like to learn. Well, I'm trying.
I would imagine you.
I spent some time doing it myself for
Right,
a while, right?
Right. Well, you've got your own skills. You've got an engineering skill set,
Yeah.
and that means you're intrinsically leaning towards always wanting to learn.
Yeah.
Like Elon says, screw your degree. I want to see that you've proven your abilities in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to follow me, you'd be
I will.
cool. South Bay Tech Gurus. I managed to nail that down. I'm on Facebook
Score,
also.
right?
Right. Well, I guess I'm a unique enough presence. South Bay Tech Gurus is what I call myself. My web guy, actually, the guy I hired to do a website for me, came up with that because I didn't know what I was going to call myself. So that URL was available. This is all normal. It's all chugging along. Oh, how heartbreaking. Watching some watching a boat sink, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a boat. I would hate to see it sink.
What do you have? I sailed most of my 20s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Cal 25.
Oh, I learned on a pair of Cal 20s.
Oh cool.
And then I had, someone just like me. Or, oh, I got a new subscriber. Hi, Richard. Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
There, cool.
Perfect.
Nice. Sweet. Yeah, I learned on a pair of Cal 20s. My dad, his side gig was renting a pair of Cal 20s off of Half Moon Bay.
Uh-huh.
So I guess I was 50
Wait,
years.
where's Half Moon Bay?
It's just as the San Francisco Peninsula starts.
Oh, I see.
So Half Moon Bay, Mavericks Beach, the famous beach that the surfers, that's basically down the road
Oh,
a
cool.
ways. But my dad lived there for a couple years, so his side gig was renting those off a pair of moorings and I was in my 15 or 16 is when he taught me how to sail.
So cool.
Yeah, and then I also had a Coronado 27 here, and then I sold that boat to a lawyer. We became friends because he didn't know how to sail, so I taught him how to sail it, and he got bored with that Coronado 27 after about 2 or 3 years, and he upgraded to a Catalina 30, which we sailed for about 10 years.
Oh,
He just sold that like 5 years ago.
Oh, nice.
So I think I've sailed 20 or 30% of the boats in this harbor here,
That's sweet.
just from making friends.
Yeah, we have Cal 25. There's 4 of us.
Is it a 225 or a flush deck or the raised?
Flushed.
Okay, so it is a 25. Yeah,
Yeah.
225 is the one with the bigger doghouse.
Ah,
Yeah.
I've seen those, but I didn't know what it was.
That's what it, yeah, so the 225s, or the 224 is what I'm thinking of. So there's you get the flush deck, which like the Cal 20, that's a flush deck. Then I don't think there's a 220, but there's like a 224. The 24 has the place that allows you to stand
Oh,
up.
cupola.
The cupola, I guess, is what you call it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Doghouse, I don't
Sure.
know. But anyway, that's the difference between
This has one of the owners previously like redid the top of like the flush deck
Yeah.
so that you could raise it up and then put a little like tent
Bimini?
over it.
A bimini?
Bimini, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's basically a convertible sort of material.
Yes.
Those are bimini sort of
Yes.
covers, yeah.
But the
Yeah.
wood is so heavy.
Right.
And one of the sports broke, so you actually have to restrain it with ropes to keep it.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
So it's a little bit half-assed right now.
Right. Yeah. No,
I've got to work on it.
well, it's a custom thing. You get a sailmaker that creates those, and then they can custom do the metal ones. The ones we had on the Catalina 30 was metal, and then you just fold it down forward.
Yep.
But in weather, it was basically your windshield, so you didn't get splashed.
Yeah.
That's how yours is set up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I made a lot of friends in my 20s just hanging out on those boats.
It's cool.
I didn't really maintain any of those friendships because it's at this point so long ago. But, yeah.
Great experience though.
Oh yeah. I mean, now I can say I know how to sail, and that's an engineer's interest because it's sort of an art. But of course, you have an interest in the mechanics of how a sailboat works.
And you get to work on the boat.
Yeah.
I did the electricals for the boat.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which they're sort of like RVs.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The only thing my RV has that a boat didn't have is air conditioning. I got air conditioning that's on the roof.
Nice, yeah.
A boat generally doesn't have that. Not that you would need it unless you're in the tropics.
Right.
Right. But yeah, I probably spent at least a solid 10 years of just coming out of Marina del Rey, Redondo, and Long Beach. When he bought that, when my friend bought the Catalina 30, it was actually in San Diego, so I can say I've been in and out of every harbor from here to San Diego.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, but only once. But most regularly out of King Harbor, a bunch of times. He parked it down in the King
Long Beach.
Well, it's the yacht
San
marina.
Pedro or something.
The marina that's run out of here. They also have one of their marinas down in LA Harbor.
Yeah,
That
I've been
co-
down
the-
there one time.
The California Yacht Marina.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that
They have a
company.
relationship with Port Royal.
Yeah, Port Royal is that company.
Yeah.
So he parked it in LA first, and then he eventually brought it up here, and then he brought it up to Marina del Rey.
Yeah, I got to stop over there one time on the way to Catalina.
Cool. Yeah, I've been on the Catalina. I don't know how many times. 10, somewhere between 10 and 20.
Two Harbors or Avalon?
Both.
Well, which one do you prefer?
Oh, prefer Two
Yeah.
Harbors because
Yeah.
Avalon is too much of a.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't want. It's too touristy.
Oh, I agree.
I actually
agree.
worked for the island company doing their tech work when I was 25. I lived over there for about 6 months.
That's
They put
sweet.
me up in the Atwater. That's their really cheap hotel.
Oh, in Avalon.
Yeah, so
Yes,
it's
I
so
know the
cheap.
one.
It's so cheap and old that the plumbing is exposed. So if you look up in the halls, you can see the plumbing throughout up and down the halls, because that's how old the building is. So yeah, they paid me just above minimum wage, and they gave me like real $150 a month rent, and I was their tech guy for 6 months. So
Sweet.
yeah, that was 04, 05. But yeah, Two Harbors is a lot more quaint. And then if you go all the way around the island, it's more protected on the Cat Harbor side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there. You don't realize it's all turquoise on the outside of the island.
Turquoise? Oh,
The water,
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't look like southern because there's no pollution that you see all up and down California. You go to the outside of the island, the water looks like you're in the tropics.
I got a great example that I can share. This was my most recent trip to Two Harbors with my friend,
Yeah.
and he saw all of us crammed together, but he got this really like.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. Yeah. The outside, because I guess with enough wind and it's enough offshore, it's away from the populace. You don't have the pollution you get.
Yeah.
But yeah. So my friend that I made, he got the Catalina 30, and like 5 years ago he finally sold it. But we sailed that thing multiple times a month. So I can honestly say I spent most of my 20s and early 30s day sailing hard out here. I'm sure both those boats are, I had a Catalina 27 briefly, so basically someone had literally given me that. That was called the Sunny Side Up because it was white and yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, my first boat, the Coronado, was the Slipaway, and then the Catalina 30 was the Didgeridoo.
Oh, good name.
Yeah.
Good name. Ours was named Zuma J.
Yeah.
We bought it from a guy up in Zuma Beach.
Right.
His name's Jay, and he owns a surf shop up there.
Right.
Yeah. So we did have a lot of interest in renaming the boat when we first got it.
Which supposedly is bad luck.
Yeah, but there's quite a procedural way of like mitigating the bad luck.
Right.
Which includes like destroying all written records of the existing name, and then you have to like write the existing name on something and like drop it in the ocean and all this stuff. So we did that, and we had this day where we were having like a renaming ceremony, a bunch of friends over, have some champagne, and we just figured we were idiots. We just got the boat, we had no idea what we were doing.
Right.
And we just figured we'd show up with some acetone and some wipes
Right.
and just take off the old name in like an hour.
Right.
And all our friends are there, and we end up spending about 3 hours. Everyone's scrubbing to try and get the name off.
Right.
And we only got the Z and the Y, so on one side of the boat. So now we've nicknamed the boat Umaja.
Yeah.
But it's still officially Zuma J.
Right. No, that was yeah, that Catalina 30 is about where the boat starts to get usable.
Yeah.
My 27, I could stand up straight in, but it's kind of claustrophobic.
Yeah, we don't get that luxury. We have 4 berths, so it's nice, and we got
Right.
a little head. Like I've put in some potable water.
Right.
So, but
Yeah. Well, it's a camping environment.
exactly.
Right. I mean, sometimes I fantasize about these really expensive RVs. It's like, that's too much like a house. You're not camping. You don't need a TV on the outside of your RV. That's not fun. You're supposed to be living out in the wild. I mean, that's why I enjoy my 45-year-old Class A that doesn't have anything other than air conditioning for luxury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have an LCD TV in there, and I got the adapter so I can watch Netflix from the phone that powers that TV, which is generator powered. That's the sort of band-aiding that I do.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need a TV that came with the machine, that came with the RV installed on the outside. If I have to watch a TV outside, why am I taking a TV camping?
Sure.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. So, but that's what got me into the whole thing. My dad, that's how I got into sailing. Really, technically, I didn't learn how to sail until I was 15 or 16 when he lived up in Marina Half Moon Bay. My dad was management at the company that built my motorhome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his boss, the president, had a Catalina 30, and that's my first experience on a boat.
Okay.
So that would have been the early 80s,
Oh. Okay.
before I was old enough to sail.
That's
But
pretty
my
cool.
first memory is of burying the rails real deep, and me freaking out because we were getting water in the boat, and I'm thinking, oh, what's
This
going
is the
on?
end.
Yeah, and the adults were like, oh, don't worry, this is normal.
Oh yeah, it's always fun bringing up people that haven't really done it before.
All right, yeah, and then once I got good at it, I mean, when I get good at something, I get good at it,
Mhm.
and then that's when you start to show off. You tell your friend, your date, to sit on the front of the bow, and then that's when you get her all lit. You take the tiller and you find a nice divot, and you dip the nose into the water. Then she's drenched, and it's like, what was that? A total accident.
It's a dangerous sport.
Yeah, right. And she's looking at you like you did that on purpose. Yeah. So yeah, the boat thing, and then yeah, my dad was management at the company that built my motorhome, so I've always liked to tinker and do things, modify things.
Yep. Comes with the territory.
Right. Yeah, normally you wouldn't normally get a motorhome with carburation, but I knew what I wanted. We're almost done. Yeah, so this is essentially 6 months of updates we just did. And if it was on an SSD, next time it'll be probably twice as fast. Yeah, I really lost touch with all my sailing friends.
Oh, life goes through phases.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've gone through a lot lately. Lots of changes. Made new friends, moved on. Like hot my photo, sister. What? What time is it? Good, we're good. Do you have a laptop also?
Did. It doesn't
Alright.
work.
Alright.
It's an old one and it doesn't work. I really only ever had my work laptop until my friend gave me this.
Right. Do they give you a computer for work?
Yeah. Yeah. One that will have to be returned at one stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like to know that this thing is reliable.
My assumption was that just for the rest of my life I'm just gonna slowly keep on upgrading it.
Well, I can tell you,
me
it
too.
looks like a dated board. One, it has VGA, and two, it doesn't do the M2 SSD. The newer M2, the newer SSD type is called an M.2. This motherboard does not support that, but that's how big here, this motherboard here has it. Actually, no, yeah, it does. Okay, so like a new SSD goes straight onto the motherboard, right there, and right here, and it's like, it looks like a stick of gum.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it's physically a lot smaller, but also faster. So faster than that other SSD we're talking about.
Even though, yeah, the one at the $200 one.
Yeah. So
I see.
and this new M2 is actually not that much more expensive than the one we're talking about, but it's like twice or 3 times faster.
Okay.
So I'm showing on camera here. Here's our M2, the newer form factor that's been around for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, something like that.
Do you know how much a motherboard in that
Well,
ballpark costs?
$150. Yeah, you're not talking. It's not an expensive upgrade to have M2 access. That's the new standard. What you're going to get on a slightly upscale motherboard is support for 2 or 3,
Okay.
and then there's other technologies that are going to be more expensive also, like dual channel RAM, and more support for higher end chips, or multiple graphics card or like PCI slots.
Has the cost of this capacity dropped in the last couple of years?
Well, a 2 terabyte drive is pretty much standard. I think you can get up to a 4 terabyte drive these days. I don't know what the biggest, just do an Amazon search. I don't know what the biggest M2 is. But I think 4 terabytes is fairly common, and I think it's about $100 a terabyte. So, I mean, do you know, I can't tell just by looking at this video card. Do you know what video card it is?
Sorry, do you mean the graphics card?
Graphics card, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just not.
Alright.
It's RX 580.
Alright, yeah. So
So
technically, that video card is bottlenecked from the rest of the machine. Like the chipset, the bus speed throughout the motherboard is probably not capable of feeding it enough data for that video card
to be
to
really
totally
used.
right. And not that it's a totally high-end video card, but essentially, if you buy a really expensive video card, that's technically no longer your bottleneck. Your bottleneck is often like if you had an i3 chip, which is an entry-level chip, that would have also potentially been a bottleneck. Or like if you only have 4 or 8 gigs of RAM, that could also be a bottleneck.
Would you suggest the next upgrade after doing this SSD, like maybe 3-6 months from now, would be a motherboard?
Yes, so get a CPU and motherboard combo. So like if you go to PCPer.com, they have what's called a hardware leaderboard. They have a small, medium, and large based on whatever you might want to spend. So like you could build a computer for $600 or $700, but if you really want a performance-oriented machine, you can spend twice that or 3 times that. And they have tried and true combinations, and that's why they call it their hardware leaderboard, because they know that works really well based on the conditions that they've bench tested themselves.
Okay.
So, and then they just have Amazon affiliate links, so
Yeah.
they make $1 or $2 off of each of those sales. But essentially, it's hardware that they've tried. So
instead of doing piecemeal, you're suggesting that you would do like a step function change? Where
well, you
you're
can
like,
piecemeal
okay,
it if you want, because theoretically, when something says it's compatible with something else, it should work.
Mhm.
But that's not 100% the case,
Mm.
because you get cheesy drivers. Some companies, like HP, is kind of known in the business as doing really bad printer drivers.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I try to tell people, if you're in the market for a printer, buy anything except an HP, because it's kind of laughable in the industry as them making really crappy drivers.
Oh, okay.
So that's the sort of reason you would get one piece of hardware versus another, because the drivers might be that much better.
Mhm.
So the hardware leaderboard, which is their offering, if you go to PCPer.com,
Mhm.
is a list of collected hardware that they've actually tried, and they know to be reliable. I didn't even check to see if the driver was installed for the Wi-Fi here. H77MDH3. Oh yeah, I've sailed the Cal 24. Yeah, the flush deck. Yeah, I've sailed the Cal 24. I don't think I've ever sailed a Cal. Do you say yours is a Cal 24 or 5?
5.
All right.
It does look like very similar to this.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's only 1 foot different. It's
Yeah, here.
yeah.
I got one.
I don't have any pictures of myself. I didn't have a smartphone until after my days.
After the days, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really have. Back then, I remember my first phone was a Nokia that had Snake on it. That's right. That was a while ago. I'm getting up there.
I remember those days.
Mm-hmm. We're probably the same age, similar.
Here, this is.
Yeah. Actually, that's a flush deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That is the flush deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why they kind of use those boats to race on, because that flush deck allows you more room to run around on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also very, very nice as a cruising feature.
Right.
You have people that want to be able to like move around on the boat.
Right.
So.
Yep. Yes, so I had a Cal 27 Catalina 27 briefly, but mostly the Coronado 27, which is a fairly roomy boat for the size, because the doghouse it had no sidewalks. The doghouse came all the way out to the hull,
Oh.
So you technically walk on top instead of on the side of the windows.
Yeah.
The windows were basically right where they meet the deck line. Yeah. So that's why it felt
Got to
more
be very trusting in your sealant. On your
right. Well,
windows.
the guy that sold me that boat had just redone the windows, so
Okay.
the windows were no longer crazed over from heat damage or UV damage.
Yeah.
He put real glass in there,
Oh.
so it was almost like motorhome glass.
Wow.
In there. Yeah. So I guess that's what he did for a living. So he did
Bring the value you have in the world.
right. Okay, let's see here. Coronado. $27. I'm sure all the boats I've sailed are still local. There they are. Oh, 72. I wonder if this was my boat. Can't tell. Oh, they want $9,000 for it, huh? There you go. See how the doghouse comes all the way out to the side?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so that made it for a 27 a little more roomy inside.
It's good looking.
Yeah. Coronado actually made a 32-footer that looked just like this, and then they made a center cockpit. So that was a more livable. I've never been in one, but center cockpit means you get a whole lot more livable space down below.
Does it?
The problem with that though is because it's so top heavy, it's a little squirrely.
Oh, sure.
So just from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
So anytime you get a center cockpit sailboat, you get a more livable environment, but it's top heavy, so it performs sort of like a truck versus a car.
Yeah.
It's taller, so it doesn't handle as well.
And probably means that it's nicer in a marina, but not like
Right.
on anchor out.
Right.
Because you're just gonna fucking
Yeah.
wobble it back.
Yeah, you're wobbling a lot more
Yeah.
because it's taller. Right. But me being an RVer, I always fantasize about having a lot of creature comforts, as in being able to move around, not necessarily the latest gadgetry. Just I like to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Now I got land out in the desert. That's why I've been tinkering with the motorhome. It's broken down on me several times. So because of how old it is,
Mm-hmm.
I finally put some money into it, and now I still don't trust it driving across the desert. It's like, oh God, now I'm afraid this thing's gonna fall apart. Because now I got that. I mean, electric car owners have range anxiety. I have, oh God, is this thing gonna break down because I just left home anxiety. So, yeah. I think this is our last update. Come on. let's make sure your Wi-Fi is gonna work. You said you're gonna use Wi-Fi, right?
Yes, I will be.
Let's make sure the Wi-Fi driver got installed. The Wi-Fi was working fine, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, let me see if device manager. Oh, yeah, see, it still didn't get the driver for,
Network.
yeah. So I gotta figure out what Wi-Fi card that is, cause it was not included in the Windows. So if that card is so old that it came with the Windows 7 installation, the company might not have even offered a 10 driver for it. So, I'm glad I checked that, cause I kinda, by default, would have assumed it was already included.
Thank you.
Yeah. Worst case, I think at this point you might end up spending $30 on another one that's modern, cause if that's like the 10-year-old card that this came with
I bought it a
You
couple
bought-
years ago.
just a couple years ago,
Yeah.
then I gotta figure out what it is and go manually get the driver.
Thank you.
Do you remember what brand it is? I can't tell just by looking at it. It's got a big
Um,
old heat sink on it.
Sorry, off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Got it. Let's see here. Oh, it's a TP-Link. So, I might have to take it out to figure out exactly what it is, but it's a TCP, oh, it's an AC 1300, alright. There's a sticker right on the back plate. I'm surprised Windows 10 didn't have the driver for that. Do you know if you have a Microsoft account?
I don't know if I do.
Not a big deal, but that's what I'd recommend using for backing up. Okay, so AC 1300. Driver. It's not USB. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Okay, that's the card. Are we good? We don't want to buy it now. We want the driver. Where's the driver? Just give us our download driver. Oh, it actually supports. Oh yeah, this is an older one. It says supports Windows 8, 7, and XP. So technically,
There you go.
let's see if a Windows 8 driver will support it. Let's go to support. Doesn't say what version it is. It's a data sheet. I don't know if it's V1 or V2. Driver. Come on. Oh, it says Windows 10 and 11. Let's see here. Glad I checked that. Extract that driver folder. There we are. Okay, so now let's see if this network driver works. Browse my computer. Browse. Desktop. New folder. Click OK. Next. Installing drivers. So I had to manually install the Wi-Fi driver.
I guess that's.
Windows 10 didn't have it, including the updates. The updates are usually pretty good about it. But in this case, there we go. So now, and click on that network icon and we should have a list of Wi-Fi networks available. There we go. That was not
Nice.
happening.
Thank you.
Sure. Good, so yeah, now that's working, and I guess it did one or two more updates. Update and restart, then I'll shut down and I'll put this memory chip in and see if it's good. So, now the Wi-Fi's working.
And the startup is always going to be slow until I switch it over to the SD.
Exactly, and it'll literally be 2 or 3 times faster.
You said earlier that you did a house call.
Yeah, I do. That's probably half the work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like if you need a printer set up or setting up Wi-Fi, one of the most common repairs or requests is making Wi-Fi work in some of these bigger homes. Yeah, because a Wi-Fi router that comes with the service is not necessarily going to cover more than say 2,000 square feet. So if you got one of these bigger homes in Manhattan or on the hill,
Yeah.
you got to get the better hardware for that.
Okay. Is that like one of those like Google Homes where you get?
You can
like,
do the Google, but the next step up would be the Arrow hardware. So $600 gets you the 3-pack of the Arrow hardware.
Mhm.
So the one gets installed where the internet comes into the house, and then they leapfrog over the Wi-Fi over the air
Mhm.
to the other 2 boxes, and that's
creates a little
a lot. It triples the size of the bubble.
which
Yeah.
definitely could be needed in some of these places.
Well, a lot of people don't realize their internet is what they're operating on. So like they get rid of cable, but they want their Netflix. Netflix is only going to work if you got good connection. So either you Ethernet to the back of the TV, or the TV needs to be in relatively close proximity to the Wi-Fi. And the other thing is, if you have a TV, even if you have a higher end TV with built-in Netflix, the antennas on these TVs are actually fairly anemic. So the better thing to do is to do something like an Apple TV. So like an Apple TV or a Chromecast or a Roku.
Mhm.
Those devices are separate devices, but their antenna performance is better. So if you're stuck with Wi-Fi because you don't have an Ethernet connection,
Uh-huh.
the external device is going to perform better than like this is a $1,200 TV, but it still has questionable Wi-Fi performance because that's just the nature of the way that they build these antennas.
Is that what they spend their money on? Yeah.
Right. So basically, in a laptop is actually going to give you even better performance because the antenna runs the perimeter of the screen. That's not how these antennas are. You'd think they would do it that way in these TVs, but because that's not how they do it, the TV antenna is going to be a lesser performer than, say, a laptop
Okay.
or an external device. Like an Apple TV, the performance is
Yeah.
better over the Wi-Fi.
That's cool.
So a lot of people don't realize that a TV, even if it's an expensive TV, the Wi-Fi performance isn't that great. And if you have the option, if it has Ethernet, do it. Use it.
Cool.
So it looks like that was a minor update. So now we're going to turn this off. It seems like it gets faster each time I finish an update because it's more optimized. So now I'm going to show, we still have one more update to do. Jesus. Because that's what, like I said, there's prerequisites that allow you to install more little updates. It's like updating
I've got my cart here, ready to go just in case. But I haven't pulled the trigger because there's a
Are you
chance
on
that we need new RAM, right?
Are you looking on Amazon or PC Per?
I'm on Amazon with
All
my
right.
cart.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Technically, what I would probably recommend is an SSD plus a combo of CPU and motherboard combo upgrade. So technically, you're rebuilding the whole machine,
I think
minus the video card and the power supply. But yeah.
I'm saving the motherboard for my next
Got it.
purchase.
Cool. So generally, so the motherboard and the CPU, they're going to have to be fairly in line with each other because a new motherboard's not going to take the CPU, and you're not going to want this old dogged CPU to work with a modern motherboard anyway. So there's plenty of combos out there. So, and then DDR4, that's probably DDR3, I can't tell. Let's see, this is DDR3, which is yesterday's technology. DDR4 is the current. Technically there's DDR5, but it's still not, it's such a new technology that DDR4 is still the main memory to buy.
Sure.
So you're going to want to get DDR4 RAM if you're going to get a new motherboard, plus the CPU. That's still a lot more affordable than a whole setup. And then just use this thing until it stops working. Where'd you come from?
I've been in there.
I know.
There's a secret tunnel out the back way.
Yeah. I share my office with a friend. He's got a desk and a chair in there.
That scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. He's got his own thing going. We don't really work together.
Fair enough.
He's a plumber. He's actually spends a lot of his time out in the desert helping a developer flip homes.
Oh, okay.
So he's the plumber. He's only here several days out of the week. Okay, good. It restarted. Now let's turn this thing off. Now it looks like all the updates are finally done. Come on. Shut down. So now I'm going to put this memory in, and we're going to see if it comes to life. Okay, it's still on. Unplug it. Okay, so man, I can't even properly put this memory in without removing the video card. Of course, removing the video card is a hassle.
I noticed the same thing.
Those are the sorts of things you notice on the hardware leaderboard. They check for stuff like this. Because someone at the motherboard company isn't expecting a giant video card to be right up against this. And in order to put memory in, that memory chip, the tab needs to bend over in the way, or the path of the video card. Now I can't put the memory in without moving the video card. That's annoying. Come on.
You want an extra pair of hands?
I think I got it.
Okay.
It's more.
I've had the same struggle. I definitely know what you're talking about.
Those are the sort of logistical things that you don't realize until if you get kind of experienced, because you think, well, it should technically work. Logistically speaking, I literally don't have enough room, even though the connectors should work. Right. Cool. Okay, memory's back in there. Good, we got a display with both memory modules. That was never, this is the first for that. Now this might actually make it slightly faster. Come on. Okay, good. So far, so good. So far, it's working with the chip in there.
Moments of truth.
Yes. So you got yourself a slight education too, not just a fix. And you'll be always able to revisit this 2-hour conversation too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think about that. It's like, oh, cool. So sometimes I wonder, well, I'm kind of giving it away because people can Google me and find this for free. But otherwise, when you're here, you're getting an explained conversation and you get to revisit the schooling. It's like a classroom that gets recorded.
Yeah.
So everyone benefits for the positive. All right, so that came up nice and reliable with the chip in. And we were only able to do that with Windows installed. So there we are.
And right now we have the working AMD drivers installed as well?
Yes, you got the video card going, you got the Wi-Fi card going, you got both RAM modules with a total of 16 gigs going, you got Windows installed on your mechanical 500 gig drive,
Okay.
and now that's it.
And now I'm going to pull the trigger on
What are you going to buy?
Samsung H70 QVO SATA.
Perfect.
SATA,
Yeah. Sure.
2.5 inch.
Sure.
A mount,
Yes.
and then a mount with extra cords for
Sure.
my other one.
Cool.
And then this internal solid.
Well, we don't need additional mounts for this, just these. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm only
Got it.
getting one for the
Got
larger
it.
of the two. And
Cool.
then this
Yeah,
enclosure.
for the to turn the internal drive into an external. Yes. Cool. So now after 2 hours of restarting and doing updates, I'm ready to call this a reliable setup. Yeah, it might have been that just something had come loose, like the video card that looked like it wasn't always in, or all the way in. Might have been ultimately what was causing the reboots. And that's why when I removed a memory chip, it might have been sort of coincidence that the thing was jostled.
Yes.
And now that's why the memory chip is working. So there we are. So technically we've also breathed new life into this because your Windows 7 was just an obsolete piece of OS. It was not able to get modern updates.
Not BS, OS.
Right, OS. OS. Yes, I said OS. So there, I don't know if there's a whole lot else to do. Yeah, it's a workable machine. A reliable one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. See you, everyone. We got a good fix this time. Have a good rest of your day. There you go, my face before I take off. Have a great day. If this is the sort of content you like, show up, subscribe. Give me a call, 855-434-8787. Show up in the YouTube chat. If I'm not here, someone's paying me to be